Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Geri Puleo, the President and CEO of Change Management Solutions, and I'd like to welcome you to this video on wasting time on the urgent, but forgetting the important. Okay, I know it's kind of hokey to have an alarm clock going off, but how many of you dread that sound in the morning? Well, a lot of the times that we dread getting up in the morning is because, well, we're pretty exhausted because we spent the previous day focusing on urgent tasks, all those things that needed to be done right now. The problem is we've become engaged with busyness, not business, but busyness. In other words, we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, moving from project to project, task to task. But the problem is, at the end of the day, we wonder, are we any further along towards the goals that we set for ourselves? Well, this kind of crisis management was discussed by Peter Drucker, who, as you know, is one of the top management gurus of modern times. He stated that this type of crisis management is actually the form of management preferred by most managers. Now, that might be surprising to many people, but if you think about it, a lot of times companies and managers are not really planning out their projects and telling their employees what is expected of them, what the benchmarks are, and how they can help them succeed by providing them with the resources that they need. When you don't do these things, when you don't plan and provide the resources and really communicate with your employees, what results is a crisis. And when there's a crisis, you tend to focus more on urgent tasks that just simply have to be done, but tend to avoid and ignore the important tasks that really lead the company and its employees towards the desired goals. So, what is the critical difference between urgent and important tasks? Urgent tasks tend to focus on short-term consequences. In other words, there's some type of a danger that is looming, and if we don't react to it and take care of it right this very minute, then something bad is really going to happen. For example, if your tech system or software crashes and customers can't reach you, well, that becomes an urgent situation, and you have to deal with it right this very minute. But important tasks are different. Important tasks are those tasks that have long-term goal-related implications. If we think back to the tech glitch that caused your system to crash and your customers couldn't get in touch with you, that could be an urgent situation, and it could be something that just arose without any warning. But oftentimes, when there are crises like this, it's because there was another problem that wasn't dealt with. For example, if your employees were telling you that there were glitches in the software and it was freezing up or kicking them out of the system and you did nothing about it, well, that turned an important task into the urgent task of your system crashing. The problem is in crisis management, we tend to focus on only urgent things and just seem to forget the important things, often because we haven't planned for them. So why do these important tasks become urgent? Well, do we do things now or do we do things later? Now, even though urgent tasks have short-term consequences and we have to do them now, the reason why this crisis occurred is because we put it off. Something that should have been done before, which was important but not urgent, we procrastinated and we pushed it sometime in the future. But you have to remember that someday is not a day of the week, and as a result, the things that were important turn into urgent crises. So the way to stop procrastination and avoid having tasks moving from important items to be done on your to-do list to urgent crises that simply have to be confronted and taken care of right this very minute is to stop procrastination. In other words, we no longer say, okay, it's not a crisis, so we'll just put it off and deal with it later. Instead, we realize what is the most important and we do those tasks right now. I found this great little way of remembering what it means to procrastinate, and it really does work and hits the nail on the head. Procrastinate means to put routine, odd tasks continually and repeatedly ahead of such things as important, needed, and time-effective tasks. So when you think about it, when we procrastinate, we're doing the stuff that's really not that important, but we're doing the things that might be a little bit easier at this point, or we're not in the mood to get them done. So when this happens, the important tasks get pushed off, and you know if there's some kind of a problem brewing, the longer you put it off, the more likely it will be to turn into a crisis. One of the best ways to avoid procrastination so that you're on track to achieve your goals is to prioritize. And Steve Randall said it best. He said that priorities define our lives. So we might as well be conscious about our choices. Now think about that for a minute. Our lives are determined by our priorities, and our behaviors reflect what our true priorities are. The important thing is to know what's important in your life so that you can plan your actions, plan your tasks, and plan your behaviors in alignment with those priorities. The trick, of course, is learning how to prioritize and focus on the important things in your life. So I'm going to give you 4 tips to help you develop this kind of focus and live a life so that you can create success on your own terms. The first thing is to identify your top 3 priorities. So think about it. Is it your job? Is it your family? Is it your coworkers? Is it finishing a degree? Is it playing with your kids? Is it being healthy? Is it your spiritual path? What is it? To help get you started, there have been numerous research projects and studies that have found some universality of the priorities for most people. Number one for the majority of people is health. Because let's face it, if you don't have your health, you're not going to be able to have the energy or stamina to do anything else in your lives. The second thing that's important to people are family and relationships. Those are the things that give life meaning and provide a purpose for what it is that we're doing. And the third priority is security. This can be often in the form of financial security, but it can be anything that makes you feel safe. So if you think about what your top priorities are, look at your day and ask yourself, are you paying attention and taking actions that will ensure that you act your life in alignment with these priorities? And once you've established those priorities, the next thing you need to do is to set performance goals, not outcome goals. A lot of times, if you just look at the end result, you can't really define the path to get there. I was talking to a colleague the other day, and he mentioned that he had completed a marathon, and the man was not a runner. You know how he did it? He ran for 10 minutes a day for 5 days, took a day off, and then he ran for 15 minutes per day, took a day off, and then increased it to 20 minutes and then 25 minutes. By setting those little performance goals and those benchmarks, it makes it much easier to eat the elephant in little bites rather than one big chunk. This is the important with performance goals. Too often we focus on the outcome, and it seems like a very tumultuous, difficult, and arduous path to try to get there. So set performance goals based on your priorities. Once you set those goals, now you need to drill down and plan your work and then work your plan. One of the big things with crisis management is there's little time to plan. It's a very reactive process. You should instead be proactive, and you become proactive by planning. Now, don't get into micromanagement and don't get into paralysis by analysis where you never actually take action on the plan. But make sure that you've got a good pathway and structure to help you get from point A to point B, and then point B to point C, and so on. Again, plan your work, work your plan, and then you just do what has to be done. You create the necessary habits to achieve it, and you can create success on your own terms. And finally, don't forget to add wiggle room. In other words, don't set benchmarks that are so aggressive that if you don't meet one of them, the entire thing is going to collapse like a house of cards. So add a little bit of wiggle room in there. And if you get it completed early, make sure that you celebrate afterwards. And finally, the simple truth is that the most important things are not urgent. And the urgent things are often not that important for your long-term success. Keep this in mind as you begin to stop living a life of busyness, a life based on crisis, and a life based on urgency, so that you can finally begin to live your life based on the important things that give your life meaning. Good luck!